อาโหสีอาโหสีอาโหสี not having to even the not having to cut or not cut, not having to even the not having to. Letting go or not letting go, not having to, not having to even the not having to. This is beyond letting go or not letting go, beyond cutting and not cutting. Not having to, either having to or not having to. Not having to, or not having to. Not having to, or not having to. underground, on the water, under the water, in the air, together with everything. No matter what, not having to, either having to or not having to. Not having to attach or detach, liberate or not liberate. Not having to, even the not having to. Beyond attachment, beyond detachment automatically. Whatever that is still in the attachment or detachment, that is still self-torture. Not having to, whether it's attachment or detachment, not having to. So that it will not become self-torture in trying to liberate from anything. Not having to, even the not having to. Not having to, either having to or not having to. Automatically is beyond being bound or being free. Nibbana doesn't have attachment or detachment because that is still excessive. Trying to attach, trying to detach is still an excessive. Not having to, even the not having to. Even not having to, also not having to. Not having to, even the not having to. So it will end all burdens. Whether it's about studying knowledge or practicing, or even the result is still a burden, is still a realm of existence. Nibbana is not considered as being anything. No matter what, not having to, either having to or not having to. Automatically is beyond cutting and not cutting. Automatically is not conditioned by attachment or detachment. Liberating or not liberating. In the way that is beyond the beyond. No more limitations to this or that. No matter what, not having to, either having to or not having to. Dissolving both having to and not having to. Attachment or detachment, liberating or not liberating is not left. Trying to let go or not letting go is not left. Something left or nothing left is not left. Nothing left is not even left. Something left or nothing left is not left. Whenever you practice and cultivate, it is the desire to practice immediately. It's not about trying to begin. It's not about trying to begin or trying to end. Even it is not it, is not it. Not conditioned even by attachment or detachment naturally. Even it is not it, is not it. no matter what. Not having to, either having to or not having to. Trying to begin or trying to end is not left by itself. No more burdens. Whenever you are obsessive with managing the states of desire, it just keep going. Let's cleanse through the emptiness without trace altogether. Through Sunyata Nibbana, cleansing everything altogether. Not having to sustain any state of the mind, because that is like the subject of guarding, like possessive, like a dog. This is not a dog watching out stuff. It's not a subject of security guard. Not having to, either having to or not having to. No entanglement within states of mind or state of Dharma attainment. Not having to, either having to or not having to, is not bound by any state of mind or state of Dharma attainment whatsoever. It's not the subject of dog watching out stuff. It's not the subject of security guard. The essence of the enlightenment is not like that. No matter what, not having to, either having to or not having to. The state of mind doesn't have to watch out itself. The mind doesn't have to watch out itself. It's not about sustaining the mind. It's not the essence that is guarding anything, not attached to either attachment or non-attachment, not grasping, either grasping or not grasping. Neither it is it or it is not it. There will not be any binding with the state of mind or states of Dharma attainment. So it will not become samudaya, cause of the suffering or the suffering automatically. Budding is not worried about budding. Blossoming is not worried about the blossoming. Blossoming gives up itself. Budding gives up itself. Blossoming renounces from itself, it disregards itself. The state of mind is not concerned with itself. It has no regret to lose itself. The mind is not regret to lose itself, no matter what, not having to, either having to or not having to. No locking up, no blocking. Go in the way of not grasping, either grasping or not grasping. No matter what, not having to, either having to or not having to. Together with everything in the way of not grasping, either grasping or not grasping. Release, disregard the release. Blossoming, disregards the blossoming. Itself giving up itself. Letting go, lets go of itself, renounces from the renouncing itself. Letting go or not letting go doesn't have to. Giving up or not giving up doesn't have to. Not having to or not having to. In this way, it will not be conditioned by giving up or not giving up, disregard or regards. Ending the practices, ending the studying. Ending all the practices, ending all the recitation, or ending all the meditations, end the ending. If you're obsessed with having to, is no end, because it's not ending in itself. It's just delusively not ending. Delusively not ending by oneself, by itself. Having to do like this, like that. Not having to, either having to or not having to. Being obsessed to be deluded with having to in a new way. Before having to, there is not having to. Even before not having to, also there is not having to. Before having to, there is no having to. Before not having to, also there isn't the not having to. Before having, there is not even the before. Delusively trying to begin and to end by itself, by oneself. So therefore it becomes self-torture in the studying, in the practice. Studying is also considered as self-torture. Practice also is a kind of self-torture. Both is a self-torture. Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta in every action. In all practices. Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta. Before having to, there is not having to. Even before not having to, there isn't the not having to. With the delusion to have to and not having to, there's become methods and ways to practice. Delusion in studying, in knowledge, in practice, in the result of practice. It's all about desire. It's the delusive attachment, cause and effect. Nibbana is not considered as being or not being anything at all. Nibbana is not considered as being or not being anything at all. Therefore, cause and effect is still a delusion, is still cause and effect is all about desire, delusion, and delusive attachment. The true origin doesn't have having and not having. The true origin doesn't have having or not having, let alone cause and effect. Cause and effect is there because the desire is there. If the desire is not there, then there is no cause, no effect, no reasons. All these are subtle desires, vibhava tanha and bhava tanha. Without all these desires, there will not be cause and effect or reasons. The desire is actually the cause of the suffering, and the suffering, the desire in the form of identifying with this and that, in the form of being serious, in the form of determination, expectation, and setting up, in the form of identifying, trying to begin and to end. This is the desire in the form of trying to let go and not letting go. The desire in the form of trying to attach and not attach. The desire in the form of attachment and detachment. This is so many transformation of the desire in many forms. The forms of trying to let go and not letting go is also the kind of subtle desire. Vibhava tanha and bhava tanha. The form of cutting and not cutting is also the desire. Therefore, samsara is deluded with cause and effect and reasons. Therefore, it's the delusion. All the reasons, cause and effect, is because of the desire. The desire creates the cause itself. For Nibbana is not considered as cause or effect, not being or not being anything. Therefore, trying to be or not be, it's just one's own desire of the mind, totally. The desire of opinions and meanings, totally. Trying to be, trying to not be anything is just totally the desire of one's own opinions and meanings. The desire that comes in the form of having to and not having to. Not having to, either having to or not having to. Not having to, even the not having to. Not having to, even the not having to. So that it will end the cause and effect and the reasons, because these are still anicca, dukkha, anatta in itself. It's still the cycle of birth and rebirth in the form of samsara, still circling. Always cause and effect reasoning is still conditioned by desire, delusion, and delusive attachment. Therefore, the results or the effects is coming from the cause, which is from the desire. Trying to begin is the desire, overlaying, seeing, knowing, and looking. Thoughts recall is from the desire, overlaying. Trying to begin, overlaying eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Therefore, all the forms of the desire, it starts from the attempt to begin, starting with vipava tanha toภาวะ tanha. It is the desire that is moving forward to create a state of mind. So, not having to, either having to or not having to, is not trying to begin or to end anything. Is not considered as cause or effect whatsoever. Cause and effect is still in the process of karma, which is coming from the desire itself that creates it. By having the desire to move forward, vipava,ภาวะ and kama tanha, without desire, there will not be cause or effect. That's not having, either having or not having. Therefore, compromising to use terminologies that have self-cleansing, cleanse the beginning itself. Even not having doesn't exist. Not having, even the not having, non-existing doesn't even exist. Then it will end the path and the result that is still self-torture. No matter what, not having to, either having to or not having to, letting go or not letting go, doesn't have to. Not having to, either having to or not having to, no more cause or effect, which is excessive. The true origin doesn't have even the not having. It doesn't have even the not having. Even not having doesn't even exist. Therefore, don't be obsessed with the excess. That's called things that have no limits, beyond the beyond. When you delusively having to and not having to, it becomes limited. Even not having to doesn't have to. Not having to, either having to or not having to. Otherwise, you will be having to until it becomes self-torture in the not having to. Not having to, even the not having to. Similarly, not grasping, even the not grasping. Do not be deluded to grasping or not grasping until it becomes a self-torture. Even not having, still having. Having the not having there. Not having, even the not having. Even not having, still having. Having the idea that is not having, that you feel that not having. Having the not having. Not having, even the not having. Whatever that is still delusively study and practice, which is coming from the subtle desire in the practice to the path to the enlightenment. Still delusively attaching, detaching, liberating or not liberating, cultivating. This is called practicing self-torture. Everything ahosi, ahosi, ahosi.